call the meeting to order, special council meeting. Roll call, please.
Leonard,
Yes.
Kraus, Dunleavy,
Yes.
Rapp, Steenbach, Wilson,
Here.
Rose,
Here.
Easter,
Here.
Schley,
Here.
Dornick,
Vernick is absent and excused, as well as Phil Rath is absent and excused.
I heard my name as I'm walking in.
We didn't hear you holler yet.
You could have yelled, let yell from the door.
45 is terrible. The roads, that's what we just said. I figured the roads were bad. We'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the agenda would be in order?
So moved.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Our citizens forum. This is a chance for citizens to make comments. Please be courteous at all times. Remember that this is not meant to be an opportunity to make personal attacks on city officials. No lengthy action or discussions can take place as a result of the comments made at this time. Are there citizens who care to speak? Yes, Rochelle?
Rochelle Lowry, E9189 Lowry Road, Cloverdale. At the last budget hearing, it was clearly pointed out that our city streets and our roads were in very bad shape and that they need attention. Now, anyone who has seen the deluxe road that is out in the industrial park, which I've heard comments, people saying it is the road to nowhere, should know that $450,000 was spent to put that road in. And as of yet, I just drove out there today, there's no business located on that road on the whole length of it. Now, I also know that this is in a TIF district. But I think, let's pay attention to the needs of the city itself. There can't be any TIFs if there isn't any city of Clintonville. And also recently, on the street committee, there was a suggestion looking into the elimination of town garbage pickup trucks, which, by the way, are traveling on our already worn-out streets. The street committee's proposal was brushed aside, saying it would add costs to the budget. As I understood it, the city could provide the service at a lower cost. So instead of having 5 trucks wearing on our streets, we could have 1. And I think the citizens of the city of Clintonville are smart enough to recognize a bargain when they see one. The city might even make a profit and might even be able to provide a job or maybe 2 for someone from Clintonville. Thank you.
I know I've seen another hand up, but I can't see who is. You want to come up?
Yes.
My name is Dave Schmidt. I live at 78 Kent Street in the city. I'm a volunteer at the local food pantry. And last Thursday, I was advised that that we were gonna have to move anywhere from December 1st to March and June. What we need to know is, are we moving? Are we going to have to move, I should say? And when we have to be out of there, because we can't make any plans of trying to get another building or write grant proposals for the fixtures in the building, all the different things that we're going to need to be in the new building, without knowing if and when we're going to have to leave. So I would hope that as soon as possible, the pantry could be told when we have to be out. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Mr. Schmidt,
Yeah.
Dave?
I tried calling you today and
Oh, I'm sorry. I messed up.
I'm not sure if I had the right phone number or not because it
Yeah,
wouldn't let me leave a message.
I messed up.
Okay.
Yeah, that was me, and that was, I wanted to put in a big pitch for letting us know
Right.
when we have to be out.
So,
Because most of the grants are the end of December, they have to be in. And without knowing a time frame, we can't apply for any grants.
so could you give me your phone number? Because I'll at least talk with a little more detail with you about
Okay.
what's happening and then,
Well, let me give you my home phone,
okay.
715-823-4597.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else care to speak? Melissa?
Maybe I should have came up and talked before Dave came. My name is Melissa Waite, 61 16th Street. I live in Cliftonville. I am president of the food pantry, and I am asking the city to please try and find some place to house the pantry. Our numbers are staggering, and we're increasing more and more every month. So I am asking the city to try and help us to find a suitable location that would benefit the city also. I can tell you that already in March through July, we've served 688 households, and we've served 1,869 individuals. With the poverty rate that is increasing every year here with the school systems, last I heard it was like 61, I'm not sure. A lot of those families are coming to the food pantry, and I honestly don't know with what we have in our account, if we can even afford to rent, heat, light, insure the whole thing. I know it's not a city service it's through the city of Clintonville, but it is a service that is serving your citizens. So on behalf of the pantry, I would like to see if the city can do anything that would help us in finding a location, helping us with the expense. You know, it is a very much needed service for this whole city of Clintonville. And again, we only serve the Clintonville School District, so we're serving Clintonville. So I plead that you will think of us and try and find a suitable handicap accessible location for us. And hopefully that the city will find it in their budget to, I know the budget is tough, but with what you're paying now to service the Armory, if you can help us in any way, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Anyone else care to speak at the Citizens Forum? Anyone else care to speak? We'll close the Citizens Forum. And we'll go to the financial update. It was at our desks. You want to take a minute to read it, or Chuck, you want to explain it?
Sure. Last week is the budget process and the public hearing and your adoption of the 2015 budget. We had indicated to you that you had a $1.7 million fund balance available based on the auditor's report from this past year. Also report to you that your capital project funds were in somewhat of a concern going into 2016 because there was just a little over $200,000 left, and your typical budgeting for projects is taking in the range of $450,000 to $500,000 a year to replace and improve the equipment that you need to do every year, and those types of things, let alone do something about streets in the community, as you heard tonight, as Alderman Zeiner had pointed out last week. As we continue to dig through the financial records, past financial records, something just didn't look right to me. I mean, the first thing that kind of brought to my attention was when you look at the fund balance that I passed out to you, and it's attached to this report, there was a large jump in between 2010 and 2011. And the more I thought, looking at all the past years, the more I thought about this is kind of basically, well, how in the world did the department head save that much money in 1 year? It just wasn't adding up, because I know they've done a good job, but with the size budget you have, that just didn't seem quite right. And Mark Dornick and I have been talking about this, and he pointed me in the direction to take a look at back when the police department was put in, improved, and see if there was anything that we could find relative to that project. And so it was a combination of that and the fact that your capital funds were overspent. That just, the department heads were saving money, but the capital funds were well overspent. Just didn't seem right. And so we asked Peggy to call the auditors and talk to them about this. And what we found out is it's kind of a good news, bad news story. There's no money missing. You don't have to worry about that. There's nothing negative from the standpoint of any dollars missing in the community. But what had happened was the police department project all got charged to the capital fund, and it drew that capital fund into a big negative when it was done in between 2010 and 11. And the $488,000 that you received as a loan to help support that project was actually put in your general fund by the auditors. That's where they decided to put the money. And as a result of that, as you went through the year and spent your budget, all your departments spent their budget, you would have had a large, because that's money they didn't even realize was there, you would have had a large surplus in your general fund at the end of the year, and that's always closed out to the fund balance then. So that's the reason that your fund balance went up from just under $900,000 to almost 1.5 in 2011. So the purpose for tonight's meeting is twofold. I wanted to make you aware of this because it's quite a drastic change from what we had told you was the financial condition of the city. In other words, your fund balance really isn't in as good a shape as it looks. And secondly, your capital's in much better shape than what it looks. Now, I probably would have waited with this until the regular meeting in December, but tonight is really your last opportunity. If you want to make a change in the budget because of this information, if you want to do something different in terms of capital projects, if you want to do something different in terms of specifically the tax levy and the tax rate, you really need to do that tonight because the clerk has to certify this to the county so that the taxes can be prepared, and we're out of time. And I guess I didn't want to wait until December and then have someone say, well, I was wanting to make a different motion or go in a different direction with this budget if I had known that information. So we thought we'd have this special meeting tonight to make you aware of it. Personally, my recommendation is that you sit pat. I think you know, we go into 2015, you've got a plan laid out where you're going to look at cuts and facilities and different ways to offset that fund balance. I don't see really a need for you to move the money from the fund balance to the capital fund right now. I think that's a decision that can be made later in a couple of ways. You could decide, because I think your capital account's going to probably be in the 650 to 680,000 range. So you could decide to maybe reinstate some projects that were cut, that your department heads felt they needed for 2015 that were cut. And those could potentially be reinstated, and you have a memo from, or an email that Mark sent to me identifying what he'd like to see reinstated. But I don't think that needs to be done this evening. You can make a transfer from the general fund to the capital account at any time as a budget amendment. And so you could wait till we get into 2015 and do that. The other thing is that as you move towards planning for your capital budget in 2016, later in 2015, you're probably going to want to look back at this fund balance and look again at projects and make a decision to move some money from the fund balance to the capital account to accommodate more than the $200,000 of projects that I said you had money left to support. But none of that is urgent, I don't believe, at this point in time. And I really believe that working through the cuts and the facility issues and how you're going to offset that fund balance usage in the 2015 budget is important. It's probably even more important now that you know that your fund balance isn't going to be as high as we had projected it would be. But if you would decide that you'd want to do something with the tax levy and the tax rate for next year, you'd have to do that tonight. Chairman of Finance obviously has some fairly strong opinions about that, and he's detailed those for you in a memo. Would be needed. And we went through that debate last week. Like I said, I think you can decide when you want to do these things, but if it's a tax levy and a tax rate change, that would need to be taken up tonight as an amendment.
Does anyone, oh, I'm sorry, Greg.
So a question for you, Chuck. If we decide not to act on these budget amendments, the way I read the agenda here, possible action would be specific to those amendments. If we don't act on those, we don't need to repass what we did last week. We just don't take any action tonight, and what we did at the last meeting stands, correct?
Correct.
Yes, Mary Beth.
When I think Phil asked at the last meeting, Phil asked at the last meeting what the auditor had recommended about the fund balance, and Peggy replied that they recommended we still keep it at $1 million, and it's above that. Mark in his memo says we should tax the maximum amount. As I understood when I talked to the people at Ehlers, they said we could tax like almost $1 million, so it isn't the maximum amount, it was the amount that he mentioned, because there's a lot we could tax up to $1 million if we wanted to. So I agree with Greg, if we don't take any action. I think the fact that we're looking at these things and we had decided not to make any decisions, I appreciate your bringing it to our attention and the attention of the public, that, because we were kind of concerned last week when we heard that the capital fund, we had borrowed for 3 years and now we only had $200,000 left to go into 2016, not 2015. That was kind of a shocker. So I appreciate the information.
One other point, the other thing I think is that I'd like to see the dust settle a little bit on this, because we found one error so far. And I'm not saying there's others, but there could be. There could be some other situations where funds, revenue or funds may have been credited to an account that they shouldn't have been. You know, the fact that we found one is concerning, and that that's been in existence for 4 years, and it really hadn't been noticed up until now. So I think, you know, if we take a few months as we work through this, I'm gonna have more chance to look at the budget. I really think maybe getting that audit report for this year and asking, during that process, some questions and for some additional look at things and to make sure that there aren't some other areas where maybe funds weren't properly coded to the correct account. I don't know if that exists or not. I haven't found anything at this point, but I think Peggy and I both feel that, to have a little more time to see if anything else pops up might be good before we start deciding, don't let this money burn a hole in your pocket. Let's see where we're really at. And that's one of the reasons I think it's good to just sit back a little bit and not necessarily add projects at this point and incur more expenditures. But the fact that you can do that anytime in 2015, I think if we get pretty comfortable with the numbers, maybe after you see the 2014 audit and we look at that more closely, which I'll make a pitch here. I understand that does not get presented to the council on an annual basis, and I don't think you have to necessarily spend a whole night at it, but in my professional career, the council has always heard a report from the auditor. There's always some key things we ask them to address, point out to you, and allow you to ask questions on, and I would really recommend that you do that in the future. At least, take a half hour and have them report to you and tell you what their findings are and what some of the issues might be that they saw as they went through that audit. Something like these numbers could easily jump off at you as something being incorrect based on just discussions you've had over the course of a year doing projects. And I think this all goes back to what I've been kind of harping at since the day I got here, and that you need more than one set of eyes on the financial stuff that's going on in the city. And you've got to have as many people that can kind of look at this stuff and see, and double check, and because you don't want to have this happen very often. It could be a lot worse. It could be something where we've got a real financial problem as a result of something that's missed. That isn't the case here. It's just a matter of where the money is. And you still have the money, and it's still usable for whatever you decide you want to use it for. But I guess make my case for maybe a little bit more attention to the finances and also the council playing a role in that annually.
John, did you have your hand up?
It's just telling how bad poverty is in this town. I think it's worse than what we realize. I don't think taxes should be raised. That's because last time when the Social Security people got a raise, the average was $11 a month. Now that isn't very much. And some people can use that extra, what you're not paying for tax money. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? Yes, Mary Beth?
Do we need any action on I think we should make sure that the council does receive the audit report. Do we need any action on that, or is that just a recommendation?
It's just a recommendation from Chuck, yeah.
Do we need any action on anything?
Well, we're still on the financial update, so we're not to the budget part yet, okay? Yes, Bill?
Has there been a final from the ambulance if they're going to need the entire $35,000? Is that in your hopes would be resolved?
Not that I'm aware of.
Meeting, 10:30.
Enough. Okay.
Anyone else have any questions on the financial update? I guess I have one. Why would the auditors do this? Why would they I don't understand how that would happen. Have we gotten any feedback from the auditors at all?
They've acknowledged that it was an error. They had directed Peggy through numerous emails that the police department renovation project was supposed to be charged to capital, and that's exactly what was done. So they were giving her proper instructions on where the charges were supposed to go. But as I understand, they made the actual fund transfer. It didn't go through anyone. It didn't go through Peggy. It didn't go through your administrator. They made the actual fund transfer from debt to the general fund. And I'm I can't honestly tell you if anybody was aware of that happening or not. As I said before, it probably should have became evident at the time the audit for that year was done, because something should have popped off that there was a problem there with the numbers. But whether anybody was informed or aware of it when it was actually done by the auditors, I don't know. Doesn't appear that that was the case.
I guess is that proper procedure for the auditors just to do that?
I wouldn't think so without notification of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You're moving funds around, and it would seem like you would notify the community and make them aware of it with some kind of correspondence, or, I mean, at least a telephone call, but probably some official correspondence
Writing, yeah.
that they can keep for their records, I would think.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions on the financial update? Yes, Mary Beth?
On the memo that Mark Dornick sent to Chuck, recommending that these 3 items be put back into the capital budget. You haven't done that, right?
No.
No, that'll be under discussion for possible action on 2015 budget.
Okay.
That's where that'll be addressed.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no more questions on the financial update, that's all informational. We'll be moving down to then discussion and possible action on 2015 budget amendments. There was a letter from Mark on our desk, and Chuck kind of explained it all as well. Hopefully you had a little bit of time to read it. And on the last page of the stapled packet is the items that he would also like back into the capital budget. I guess I'm in agreement with Chuck. Let's wait till for the dust to settle. We can always add it later. And I would be happy with the budget we have right now. And just we can always switch things around as the year progresses. That's just my opinion. I don't know how everyone else feels. If you want to make an amendment to the 2015 budget. Terry, I see that Mark is asking for the squad car replacement to be put back into the capital. I don't know what time of year do you get that, in the spring normally?
Generally, we order replacement cards in January, February, so there's time.
Yeah.
If that were to occur.
So if we wait on it, it's
There's no deadline,
not
no.
big, it's not that big.
I think they build police cars, I don't want to say until May,
Okay.
so I think we're fine. If they decide to wait away.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have any comments or questions or motions? If we're going to leave it as is, I don't think we need a motion, correct? So it's up to the council what you'd like to do.
Oh, we got number 6 yet.
Oh, yeah.
Appointment of the, are we moving on to number 6 then? Is there anyone that wants to make any changes, or are we going to leave it as it is and take Chuck's suggestion as to wait for the dust to settle and see what all happens at the beginning of the year when we start going over all of these changes with the buildings at the swim pool and the community, the rec center. And I know I did get a couple calls on the rec center with the food pantry. Actually, got quite a few calls. It's not closing December 1st or January 1st. I don't know where that information came from, but it's, we talked about it, and that's what it was, just talk. It never came to fruition that it was happening immediately like that, just so it gets out in the media correctly, so, okay? Because, yeah, I had many phone calls on it. Then there is no action on the 2015 budget. Let's move on to appointment of the Veterans Memorial Committee. I would like to make an appointment of Rhonda, I don't want to call her name is, I want to say Thompson, and that's not right.
No.
Havlik. I'd like to make the appointment of Rhonda Havlik to that Veterans Memorial Committee. She has served, she was a lifetime in the 23 years in the Air Force, and she's retired here in Clintonville. She's originally from Clintonville. So I would like to make that appointment to that committee, and I would ask for
I'll second that. Second.
Oh, you made the motion and he's seconding it?
I thought you were making the motion.
Well, that's okay.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
No,
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carried for that appointment then. And I guess that concludes the meeting. Anything else?
second half.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carried.